All right, welcome to our first of two primary documents. This one's by Laozi. It's called The Classic of the Way and Virtue. And the way I've got this document and the Confucius document set up is that there's really two versions of it. So this is the original version over here on the left. Okay, this is a translation of the original Chinese. The language is a little bit tougher and harder to understand, but certainly potentially doable, right? Especially if you've got a really solid reading level. On the right-hand side, I have what I call a no fear version. And the no fear version, what I did was I took this language on the left and I simplified it. I made it a little easier to understand. So I kept the content the same. It's got all the same ideas, but it might be a little easier for you to understand as you are reading it on your own or as you're going back and referring to it. Okay, but what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to read from the original version and I'm going to talk through it as I do that. So you might want to go ahead and take some notes as we're going. All right, so a state, and I'm right here, top of the first paragraph, a state may be ruled by measures of correction. Weapons of war may be used with crafty dexterity, but the kingdom is made one's own only by freedom from action and purpose. Okay, so a state, think country, okay, is probably the synonym you're more used to. So a country can be ruled by laws and penalties. Probably a good analogy for you is like a classroom, okay, where there's rules, and then if you break the rules, there's penalties for doing so, right? You get in trouble in some way. You maybe get your name on a board, or you have to miss some recess, or you have to go talk to the principal, or a parent phone call, something like that. That's what we mean when we say penalty or measures of correction. Okay, weapons of war, now we're really talking about fighting. Okay, weapons of war may be used with crafty dexterity, in other words, creatively. Right? So we can use them creatively, but at the end of the day, right, the kingdom is made one's own only by freedom from action and purpose. So you can conquer the kingdom and you can rule it, right? So you can conquer the kingdom using those weapons of war, guns and tanks, and at this particular time this was being written, it probably was more like bows and arrows and kites, right? Maybe horses. And you can control the people in it, right? That's those measures of correction, rules and penalties, laws and penalties, right? But the only way you can make it your own is by relaxing, right? Freedom from action and purpose. In other words, you can't be too over the top. And here he's drawing a difference between ownership, as in like, this is my mug and I know it's my mug because I control it, right? I control it because I make it move up and down and left and right, whatever. And it's my mug because it happens to sit in my office. Okay, so he's drawing some lines there. All right, second paragraph. How do I know that it is so? By these facts. In the kingdom, the multiplication of prohibitive enactments increases the poverty of the people. The more implements to add to their profit that the people have, the greater the disorder is there in the state and clan. The more acts of crafty dexterity that men possess, the more do strange contrivances appear. The more display there is of legislation, the more thieves and robbers there are. Okay, so how do I know that it is so? So how do I know that I can make the kingdom my own? If I just relax, right? If I free myself from action and purpose and I just kind of let things be, right? He says, so by these facts, in the kingdom, the multiplication of prohibitive enactments, laws, right? The more laws you have, the poorer people are, Okay, there are laws or rules around too many things. The harder it is to comply, the poorer people get. Okay, poverty both in a literal sense of people are poor and struggling to support themselves, but also poverty in the intellectual sense, right? If they feel like they're going to get punished for everything they do, they're less likely to spend time being creative. Okay. The more implements to add to their profit that the people have, the greater the disorder is there in the state and the clan. Okay, so the more tools, the more ways people have to get wealthy. Okay. That's what he means when he says add to their profit. And again, wealth could be a literal wealth, but it could also be that intellectual wealth, right? That ability and that time to think. Okay. The greater the disorder is there in the state and the clan. Okay, state again means like country. Clan is another word that means it's like an extended family. Okay, it's like you and your parents and your grandparents and your aunts and your uncles. That's a clan. Okay, so now he's arguing for balance, right? If there's too many rules, people are too poor. If there's too many options, there is disorder. Okay, so we're trying to strike that balance. The more acts of crafty dexterity that men possess, I'm back in the text here, the more do strange contrivances appear. Okay, so the more tools men have to work with, and he's being literal here in this sense. Every time he says men, Laozi would literally have been thinking of males. Okay, but nonetheless, he says the more acts of crafty dexterity that men possess, the more do strange contrivances appear. The more ability people have to be creative, the more things they create. Okay. The more display there is of legislation, back in the text, the more thieves and robbers there are. So we're striking that balance, right? And he's coming back to what he was talking about earlier with the prohibitive enactments increasing the poverty of the people, right? If there's more legislation, this is laws, okay? Legislation is another way of saying laws or lawmaking, right? The more thieves and robbers there are, the more people there are that are going to try and get away with stuff. So he's striking that balance. We want that balance, right? Enough freedom, but not too much. Enough rules, but not too many. Therefore, and now I'm right here, okay, therefore, a sage has said, I will do nothing, and the people will be transformed of themselves. I will be fond of keeping still, and the people will of themselves become correction. I will make no trouble about it, and the people will of themselves become rich. I will manifest no ambition, and the people will of themselves attain to primitive simplicity. Okay, so sage is a wise man, right? So he's saying, a wise man has said, I will do nothing, and the people will be transformed of themselves. So I'll back all the way off, right? And people will take care of themselves. I will be fond of staying still, so I will not try and stop people or correct people, right? I'm not going to move, metaphorically or literally. And the people will of themselves become correction. Everybody will correct themselves. I will take no trouble about it, and the people will of themselves become rich. So I won't try, right? I'm not going to make any rules or anything like that. I'm not going to try and help people become better. But people will ultimately become wealthy in a literal and a metaphorical sense, right? I will manifest no ambition, and the people will of themselves attain to primitive simplicity. So I'm not going to show that I want to get better, right? I'm not going to try to improve things. And the people themselves will work to keep their lives simpler. Okay. And the sage he's referring to here, right, he's talking about Taoists who really believed just in a very simple life, and in meditation and simplicity. Okay. So that's our first 3 paragraphs. And now we're in our last 3. Not to value and employ men of superior ability is the way to keep the people from rivalry among themselves. Not to prize articles which are difficult to procure is the way to keep them from becoming thieves. Not to show them what is likely to excite their desires is the way to keep their minds from disorder. Right? So this is kind of the KISS approach to things. Keep it simple, stupid. Right? That's what that acronym stands for. But he says not to value and employ men of superior ability, men who are better, smarter, and faster at things, right, is the way to keep the people from rivalry among themselves. So people won't compete to show that they're better, stronger, faster if we don't place value on those things. Okay? Not to prize articles which are difficult to procure is the way to keep them from becoming thieves. So if we don't value, if we don't desire, if we don't make valuable things that are difficult to get, right? To procure is to get or to acquire. Then people won't become thieves. Okay? There's no reason to go out and steal that $10,000 coin if the $10,000 coin has no more value than a penny. It's kind of that thought process there, right? So if we are not prizing, if we are not valuing articles that are difficult to get, then people won't try and steal them. Okay? Not to show them what is likely to excite their desires is the way to keep their minds from disorder. Okay? Again, if we're trying to keep things simple, right? So we don't want to show people the things that they might want, right? We're not exciting their desires. We're not showing them the things that they might want, that they might aspire to, right? Or ways that life might get better. And in so doing, we're going to keep their minds simple. So they're not going to get excited or angry, right? They'll be mild-mannered. Therefore, the sage, in the exercise of his government, empties their minds, fills their bellies, weakens their wills, and strengthens their bones. Okay? So sage, again, is a wise man. So the wise man, in the exercise of his government, so when he's controlling things, right, empties the minds of his subjects, so he doesn't try and teach them things. Okay, doesn't give them opportunities to innovate or create. He fills their bellies, he keeps them well fed, so they don't need to be innovative or creative. They don't need to strive for things. Okay, he weakens their wills, so he makes it so that they don't want to do anything different. Okay, that they want to just do what they're doing day in and day out. But they don't want to stand up to authority or things like that. And he strengthens their bones. So in a very literal level, he makes them stronger and able to work harder. But again, work harder at the same kinds of things that they're already doing. So he wants farmers to be able to farm more, but he doesn't want them to be more, doesn't want them to have to fight to get enough food out of the earth, to scratch to get enough food out of the earth, because if too many farmers are doing that, they're going to protest against the government, right? And they might raise up a rebellion. So the sage keeps everybody happy, right? That's the idea. It keeps everybody happy and contented. Doesn't give them an excuse or a reason or even a way where he can to rebel against the government. Last paragraph. He constantly tries to keep them without knowledge and without desire, and where there are those who have knowledge, to keep them from presuming to act on it. When there is abstinence from action, good order is universal. So he, in this case the sage, right, constantly tries to keep them, the people that he's ruling, without knowledge and without desire. So again, he's not letting them educate themselves. He's not letting them strive for things or try to do better. Okay. And when people do have knowledge, so when they do know more, he wants to keep them from acting on it. Okay, so he wants to keep the people who know a little bit more from trying to encourage others to learn more, right? Or perhaps to implement something new or try something different. Okay, when there is abstinence from action, I'm at the last sentence. Abstinence means that you're not doing something. You're refraining from doing something. Okay, so when we're not doing something from action, right? Good order is universal. So if we're only doing what we've been doing and we're not doing anything new, then good order is widespread. There are no protests against the government. There's no civil war or anything like that. Okay, so this is what Laozi is saying. In a nutshell, right, you want to keep life simple as much as you can. So you want not too many rules because you don't want to give people a reason to rebel, but you want enough to keep them in their place. And you don't want them trying to educate themselves or improve their lot. All right, so if you have questions over the document, go ahead, read that right-hand column first. See if you can sort it for yourself. And otherwise, reach out to me and let me know. I'd be delighted to help you out any way that I can, and I'll see you in class.